Stand and say the pledge with us.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Do we have any public comment for this evening?
I asked to speak this evening.
We'll move right along to routine matters. Can I get a motion to approve the regular meeting May the 13th, the executive session May 13th, and the executive session on May 28th, 2024, and the commencement on June 1st, 2024?
I move that we approve the minutes as listed above.
And second?
Well, second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. On to claims, Mr. Day.
Included in your packet are regular regular accounts payroll claims, and a construction claim. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about any items. Otherwise, I ask the board approve the claims as presented.
No questions, comments? Can I get a motion to approve the claims as presented?
Make a motion, we approve the claims docket as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. On to old and unfinished business, financial matters.
Yes, in your packet is the final April receipts and expenditures and the nearly final May receipts and expenditures. What's really missing is interest income in the general fund, it's not even the general fund anymore, the education fund. Happy to answer any questions about it. Generally, we're following where we thought we would be. As we get further into the budget process and talking about some of the other items later in the agenda, in the future, we'll start to update some of those projections for the last half of the year and going into the next year. And I'd just like to add that, as I stated in the note here, we are a year into the CompuTrol conversion, moving from the outdated, though beloved, CompuTrol version that we had for years and years and years to our new web-based version, and it's been really outstanding, and I appreciate you guys taking that on, but also working through us on some of the road bumps we've had along the way and getting the reports to look as good as they can, and we're excited about using it, and it's working very well.
Thanks. On to instructional report.
Got a variety of items in here for you. The first couple you would have seen last month. I'm actually going to ask Mr. Carey to sit up here and share a little bit about the first two items.
Thank you.
You ready, Ricky?
I think so. Let's find out. So the first item we have for you is a second reading from our World Language Materials Adoptions. We talked about this last month. Our World Language Department, led by Aaron Grimes, has done a great job reviewing materials. They have asked to settle on a recommendation to CLET World Languages. If approved, they do have a date planned this summer to work on some curriculum maps and pacing guides with the new materials, so they're excited to get their hands on that if it goes through. Happy to answer any questions, but we are asking for approval tonight to adopt those materials.
Questions or comments? If not, can I get a motion to approve the world language materials?
I move that we approve the world language materials.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Second item I have for you is our credit recovery platform. Again, we talked about this last month. We are asking to switch our secondary schools, that is the junior high, the high school, and our academy here, to Edmentum from Edgenuity. High school and junior high staff, as well as the academy staff, have done a great job meeting with vendors and talking to local schools. And they feel like it's going to be a great opportunity for our students, not just with credit recovery, but also when it comes to our graduation pathways. So we have all of that ready. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We're just asking for approval for Dr. Rowland to be able to sign the agreement to proceed with Edmentum.
Can I get a motion to approve the new credit recovery platform as
I move to approve the credit recovery platform.
I'll second.
all in favor, say aye. All opposed, same.
Thank you.
Next item I put in here, just for your information, some of the safety mental health resources we've instituted here in the last 5 years. I know you've had some questions that have come in from the community. I wanted you to have a list of that, while also listing some things that we're doing this summer and some things that we have in store for next fall already that have been planned. You actually see the prevention resources with specific dates listed in there, with Rachel's Challenge, Remedy Live, Stand for the Silent, and Unmasking the Mascot. A couple dates yet to be determined, but you have a time frame of when those will occur in the year. We're doing some things that will be very much in line with one another among the 8 schools for next year. So just want you to have that information. If you've got any questions about that, certainly we're prepared to answer questions about them.
I presume we're gonna be pushing the information about when these programs are gonna take place out via all of our avenues of communication.
Parent Square would be the primary way we would do that. It'll be in some of our newsletters as well that each of our 8 principals would use.
Because I think that community involvement and engagement is just critical for us. And I really hope that we can get people energized and engaged at this point, so.
It is actually one of our topics for tomorrow, as we're meeting with all of our principals, and they know that that's coming. But we do have an opportunity here, there's a lot of interest in our community to participate in that, and we plan on capturing that. If no questions on that, the last item that we put on there would be e-learning days for next year, and these would be corresponding dates with what we would have had this year. It would be September 17th in that first quarter, November 5th in the second quarter. We're trying to avoid that third quarter because we have inclement weather oftentimes, and you have Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, inclement weather, so we did push that third one to the fourth quarter. Pretty similar to the eclipse date that we had this year, but if those are the dates that we're recommending, and if you're okay with that, we'd love to push those out to our families.
Okay.
Okay, and we will do that. That's all we had in the instruction report this month.
To continue with the construction project update.
One of my favorite topics here for you, and I think we'll have Mr. Thompson share a few of those pictures there for those who are in the audience this evening. But we actually have a special guest this evening with Mark Beebe, our primary architect. I know he's been out on site quite a bit for our construction meetings, but the first picture that you're looking at there, that was taken about a week ago, standing on the stage looking out into the auditorium. You see the floors poured everywhere. You're actually starting to see where the stairs come down. That has been framed in here in the last couple of days, so it is changing very quickly. The good news is we're still on target to have those hallways done for the start of school year, which will really assist Mr. Walbaum and that high school staff as we're getting kids in from the parking lots. That auditorium box itself, we're still looking at early October for a completion date there. But I want to make sure that you had an opportunity to see that. And Mark, while you're here, is there anything you want to add?
I don't know that I have to add anything. This is great.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Appreciate you being here, and obviously Mark's team with Ratios have been fantastic. You see the meeting notes that we have there. Zach's always here at those meetings with us from Ratio, and things with any project of this size, you're going to encounter some challenges, some things you're not always thinking of up front, and the team has always found a way to tackle those in a pretty efficient way. From a cost standpoint as well as timeline. So pretty excited about the things happening with the auditorium. We did go ahead and throw a few other things in there just to remind you that we have construction going on. That picture there is actually just north of us in this building here as we add that 8th preschool classroom in the corporation. Great if you go ahead and go down there. Doing a lot of parking lot work at the junior high school. Unfortunately, we have found in the subgrade there much of the same soft conditions, wet conditions that we found on the north end at the junior high last year. Probably the reason why we've encountered a lot of the difficulties since 2010 in that parking lot. But doing a little bit of a redesign there, some resurfacing, and that should be done here in the next few weeks, we hope. And then lastly, you're seeing some pictures there at Weston. That's been on our list for well over a year. We've asked Mrs. Welch to move out of her office a little bit, which has made it interesting for some of her interviews this summer. Those have been over at our office, but we are finally tackling that front office space there. And then the last picture, tackling some of those high school restrooms that really haven't been touched in almost 55 years. So things moving along very well. That is on the far south end of the high school, so just on the other side of the parking lot here, we're tackling 2 sets of those restrooms. Happy to answer any questions that we have or that you have about construction that's going on. I know as you're driving around our various sites, they are very, very active with construction.
Questions?
Okay, we'll have some more updates for you next month.
Okay, thanks. On to student handbooks, second reading.
As noted, this is a second reading, and we did put a few minor tweaks in there. The primary one actually having to do with opportunities for parents to notify us if they don't want their child's names or pictures in any of our social media or any of our parent square items that would be going out. I want to make sure that was in all 4 of our handbooks. You do have the attachments for each of the 4 tiers underneath that with, again, the cover sheets showing you where any changes have been made. I do have principals here from each of the 4 tiers if you have any questions about any of those recommended changes. If not, we'd love to have approval to move forward.
Can I get a motion to approve the student handbooks changes as presented?
Make a motion to approve the student handbook changes as presented.
Can I second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And to new business information, Mr. Day.
Yes, have 2 items under new business. The first is our donations. We had 2 this month. We received $200 from Ryan and Keelan Roberts for the Robotics Club at Greenfield Intermediate School. And we had another donation at J.B. Stevens Elementary School for $7,898.95 from the Casey's General Store Education Fund for the purchase of drums and percussion for the music classroom at that elementary school. I asked that the school board approve the grant and donations as presented. The amount of these opportunities is $8,098.95.
Can I get a motion to approve the grants and donations as presented?
I move we approve the donations as presented.
Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, same.
Thank you.
And then our second item.
Yeah.
As we've done over the last, couple times over the last few years, we are looking at potential GO bond for later this year. We have attached some slides from Stiefel, our financial advisor, about the capacity we have. And keeping in mind our goal, which is to maintain our current debt service tax rate at 58 cents and provide opportunities for future projects, you know, not handcuffing ourselves with borrowing so much money up front that we, you know, raise that debt service tax rate to 58 cents for the next 20 years. What they are suggesting is a series of borrowings over the next couple of years, but primarily this one would be about $2.5 million to fill that hole. I've listed a number of projects that we would like to address. A lot of these are things that have been on our potential project list for a number of years, including, you know, the completion of McLaren Road by the junior high school, tennis court work, you know, remodeling and refreshing existing bathrooms, you know. So some things that are you know, new projects and some things that are renovations of our existing facilities, addressing deferred maintenance. As always, we're happy to take input on projects that are important to the community and our schools and to you. But more importantly today, if you are interested in this, we will reach out to our normal team, Mr. Strahl and Ice Miller and Stiefel, to get working on the legal documents and bring those back to you in July and August so we can borrow some money at the end of the year.
And just a reminder, some routine things, boilers, chillers, parking lots, things we can't do out of the operations fund and still maintain the level of resources in that education fund we want to have for collective bargaining and other things that we have.
We will bring more information back at future board meetings for you.
All right, thanks. I think we, on to long-term.
We got one before that, just that timeline there for the budget.
Just the basic budget calendar for 2025, not a lot of changes from the years past. Today on June 10th, we talk about the calendar. Next month, we'll talk about taxing funds and the budget strategy for next year, and then just kind of down through our normal process, advertising in August, public hearings in September, and adopting in October. So, just giving you a heads up that the wheels continue to turn. We'll take a look at that next month.
Thanks. Now on to long-term planning reports.
Long-term planning, as I put in the cover sheet, really a couple things that we've done over the last quarter. The first of those was to conduct a demographic study. And as we've talked about in the past, we've done some light demographic studies in the last few years, but we're all wanting to have a more thorough look into that. And as most school corporations in our area have done, they've turned to Dr. Jay McKibben for that. And you've had an opportunity to see his report, but wanted him here to highlight some of his findings. So, Dr. McKibben, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and share some of your findings.
Thank you, Dr. Rowland, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Two things I want to go over before I go into the actual forecast results. First is, these are forecasts, not projections. Two different things. A projection is where you take a variable year, usually year-to-year survivorship, second, third to fourth, calculate over a 5-year period, create an algorithm, and literally project into the future. Very quick, simple, easy, cheap, until about the mid-1990s, all you had in the way of enrollment research. The problem with projection is they're almost always wrong, because the only way a projection can be accurate is what's happened over the last 5 years replicates itself over the next 5 and 10. I don't know about anybody here. I hope I don't see the last 5 years again in my lifetime. These are forecasts, two-step procedure. First thing we do is pulled all the 2020 census information. We superimposed your elementary boundaries on 2020 geography, pulled all the variables, created a demographic profile for each one of your attendance areas. We built a fertility, mortality, and migration model specific to each area's demographic characteristics and dynamics. The results of that pop forecast then drives the enrollment forecast. So it's your current, future, and current demographic dynamics that dictate your enrollment, not the past trends. The other thing I want to point out, don't let that Rock Hill, South Carolina fool you. Born and raised in Fort Wayne, went to Carroll High School, Northwest Allen, the big Carroll High School. Used to be the demographer for the state of Indiana back in the 80s and 90s. My doctoral dissertation was on Indiana demographics. And I've done over 100 Indiana school districts in the last 35 years. And I used to live in Indianapolis until my wife took a job and made me leave. So anyway, anytime you're doing a forecast, you have to have assumptions. These are broad socioeconomic demographic parameters, so to speak, to build our forecast model. Now, I don't want to go through all of them on there, they're in your report, but I do want to go over what's called the big four, okay? These are the 4 variables that have the highest amount of variability that could cause the largest amount of what we call random error in a forecast, okay? And the most important one is B. The 30-year fixed rate stays between 5.5 and 7.5% for the 10 years of the forecast. It was about 7.1 this morning. Why is it so important? It drives your housing market. If you can't get a mortgage, you can't buy a house. Now, these are interesting times in the housing market. We've seen something in the last 2 years that's never happened before in U.S. history. The 30-year fixed rates doubled. And you've seen the impact in the housing market. Now, those of us who are old enough to remember the 70s, 80s, and 90s when the 30-year fixed rate was 8, 10, 12%, 7 sounds pretty good. My first mortgage was 8.5%. We thought we were robbing the bank. Kids today, anybody under the age of 40, seeing nothing but 3, 3.5, and 4 for the last 10 years plus. 7 sounds like highway robbery. So there's a generational aspect to this as well. So, and we'll get to this more, we'll get to talk about the specifics of the housing market, but this is a major parameter here. Jerome Powell has pretty much said he's taken his foot off the gas, He's not hitting the brakes, folks. Everybody thought we'd have dropping rates by now, and they're still not doing it. We'll be lucky to see a rate drop maybe September, if we're lucky. But I think that's 5.5, 7.5 range is pretty safe going into the next 10 years. The era of 3, 4, 4.5% mortgage rates is clearly going to be behind us. That was an abnormality anyway. Second one is This is the state of Indiana. You cannot do enrollment forecasting in this state unless you're looking at what we call the transfer numbers. Indiana is the only state in the country that has interdistrict transfers, charters, virtual, and private vouchers all going on at the same time. Many states have one or the other, but none have all four going at the same time. The only good thing that come out of all these laws is the Indiana Transfer Report. And we have the last 8 years of it on our computers. And we've looked at it. Your last September, and your net was negative 505. Like every other district in the state, you saw an increase last year from 410, almost 100 increase more, and most of that increase was in the public to private because they changed the voucher law. They raised the floor up to $226,000 household income. 96% of all households in the state of Indiana now with kids qualify for private school vouchers. So that was a one-year abnormality, so you're not going to see that kind of increase again. We're holding your net transfer rate at 480 per year, which is pretty close to what you have been averaging the last 3 years. It's been steadily going up as they've changed the rules. But again, they can't do much on the vouchers anymore now, and the transfers are pretty set. You get about 257 coming in public, 286 or 586 going out to other publics, and another 176 going out to non-publics. So that's a number that can be very variable. Like most school districts, you have an aggressive program to either reduce the transfers out or allow more to come back in. So again, this is a variable that has a lot of potential error in it. The other two are Q and R. We assume the district will have 130 new single-family housing units, that includes apartments, built per year for the next 10 years. Over the last decade, you averaged about 200. So it's a little less on that. More important is Q. 520 existing home sales. I don't know if you're going to make it this year. Is there a realtor in the house? You need one. Okay. Talk to any realtor and they'll tell you the supply of existing homes in the market today is the worst they've seen in 20, 30, 40 years. Why? Because the elderly stopped moving. They quit moving during COVID and picked back up again, which is interesting when you consider the peak, the baby boom is 67 years old right now. There should be a flood of boomers dumping their homes in the market, but they're not. They've got no place to go. And that's why it's such low supply. The builders, seeing the opportunity, anything they've got in the pipeline, they're pushing through, okay? It looks like you're having a housing boom right now. But there was a great piece on Bloomberg just earlier, a few months ago. They looked at the 200 largest metropolitan areas in the country, total home sales, 2023 compared to 2019. And only 8 of those 200 metropolitan areas, and Indianapolis was not one of them, were home sales back up to 2019 levels. This area, total sales is running about 20% below what it was 5 years ago. So yeah, you're building a lot, but you're not selling existing homes. And that again is a variable that's going to have a lot of variability in the next 10 years. And you'll see we get to the population side. But all total, you need about 650 households migrating in and out per year just to break even, all right? So this, again, now what we use is Zillow, RealtyTrack, and Realtor.com. We have home sales down to the address level. Price point, how long they've been on the market, when the last time they were sold. Everything about your house is public domain data. Okay, in fact, you look on RealtyTrack, you can see how many houses are up for foreclosure in the neighborhood. Great way to spice up the next cocktail party. You can literally see who's in trouble in the area, because it is public domain data. So those are the 4 big ones that have That's not variability. The number one predictive value or variable for future population change, it's not births, it's not deaths, it's not even migration, it's age structure. How is your population distributed across the life course? This is a population pyramid for the Greenfield Central School District. And they're very easy to read. 0 to 4, that's your preschool. 5 to 9 is elementary, 10 to 14 is middle school, 15 to 19 is roughly your high school. 20 to 34 is what we refer to as family formation ages. 80% of all births occur in women between the ages of 20 and 34 years old. Despite what you've read in the popular press, fertility rates in this country haven't moved that much in the last 50 years. They've stayed in a nice tight 15% band from 1.6 to 2.0 children per woman in her lifetime, okay? We're now down toward the bottom of that end, but it's stayed in that band, okay? You could have a total fertility rate of 9 if you don't have women in prime childbearing age, you don't have enough births, okay? 35 to 54 are the ages where most people have kids in school. Think about it. Median age of first birth is 28, add 6 years, 34, that's the parents of your kindergartners and first graders. Other in the spectrum, they're in their mid-50s when they're going out. Now, there are exceptions to those rules. I was one of them. I was a first-time father at 40, so I was 58 when my son graduated high school. And everybody told me what a nice, well-behaved grandson I had. So, tough crowd here, folks. 55 to 69 is what we refer to as the empty nest ages. And this is where it gets confusing for people. You got the Smith family down the road, been living there for 20 years, all right? But 10 years ago, mom, dad, and 2 kids. But today, the kids have grown up, graduated high school, and moved away. Same house, same homeowner, but household size being 4, it's now 2. As you can see here, if you work back 10 years, this large wave of people here in 2020 were 10 years younger. They were all people with kids in school. You had a lot of empty nesting going on the last decade, which had pressure on your enrollment. 70 and over, turnover ages. You'll see a slight uptick at 62, again at 65. But most people don't downsize till in their 70s. It's not retirement that triggers downsizing. It's either the death of one of the spouses or they both lose the ability to drive. Then they have trouble maintaining lifestyle, house, getting around, all that. Then they move. And as you can see here, you're going to have an ever increasing number of homeowners population in their 70s the next 10 years, and that's one of your big drivers after 2028. Now, we also call this your demographic fingerprint because no two geographic areas have the same size and shape that are pop pyramid. And quickly, one more thing I want to point out, okay? See how this 0 to 4 bar is smaller than 5 to 9? Okay? Very, very common in suburban areas. You don't come out of college and buy a house, you rent an apartment. We're in most of the apartments in the metropolitan area, you're in Indianapolis. But most people don't want to raise their kids in an apartment. So the oldest one gets to, 5, 6 years old, they're looking for their, house in the suburbs, and they move out. So if you look at, here, Avon, Greenwood, Greenfield, all the Collier Counties areas, suburban, they have this what we call the preschool deficit. Why is this important? Well, if nobody moved in or out, you just left your own demographic devices, your elementary enrollment over the next 5 years would drop by about 500 students. Why? Not because of out-migration, you just have smaller cohorts coming in. So you be mindful of this when you're looking at the pop forecast. You need about 100 preschoolers moving in a year just to break even. You've got 5 years to fill in this preschool deficit. These are kids born between 2016 and 20. By the time they get to first grade and become the 5 to 9 cohort, just to break even. Because people instinctively see a household move in, well, they want to add up what they already have, not realizing the cohorts behind them are smaller. And again, this is virtual every suburban area, not only just in Indiana, but across the United States, has this phenomenon. And you see this will vary from area to area. This is Eden, and Eden has an older population, relatively few people in their 20s. There's mostly home ownership rates there. Okay, Harris, more people in their late 20s, early 30s, younger. There was some building there. There's also some apartments. But you'll also notice Harris doesn't have a preschool deficit in that area. That's very, very important. They don't need in-migration to break even. They're already at even if they stay put. Okay, Stevens, same thing. Got a relatively large cohort going to the high school there right now, but a much more even distribution of their population. And finally, Wesson, which has probably the biggest preschool deficit there, and they're also one of the younger ones as well. So the dynamics of your elementary attendance areas are all kind of different. Now, this is again from the 2020 census. Households with under 18 population, you're running right about 30%. The state average is 33. There's not a school district in this country where households with school-age kids make up a majority. Last one was in Utah about 20 years ago. Most states, most areas, you're running in the high 20s, early 30s. Now, persons per household is kind of an underappreciated variable. A very crude sense. Mom, dad, whatever the point is, tends to be kids, okay? The traditional two-person household. So that gives you an idea of what your yields are going to be. Now, Greenfield, like most areas, including the entire United States, saw a drop in household size the last 10 years. You went from 2.54 to 2.42. Now, 0.12 doesn't sound like a lot until you multiply it by 12,000 households. If the household size had stayed the same in the district in 2020 as it was in 2010, you would have had 1,500 more people counted in the census, and the vast majority of them would have been under the age of 18. So that was, again, a contributing factor for the last 10 years. But it won't be that case moving forward, okay? Householders age 35, 54, again, about 35%. It's slowly dropping. The good news is percent of householders over the age of 65. Here's your potential turnover households the next 10 years. 29% and rising, okay? You're going to have an increasing number of householders, particularly over the age of 70 and 75, that will be putting their homes in the market. It's not new home construction that's going to drive your change. It's existing home sales. That's the number you need to be looking at. Owners versus renters, an underappreciated variable. Owners and renters have two completely different demographic dynamics. Renters tend to be younger. They tend to be in their 20s, are still forming their families, tend to be poor because of that, and move an average every 2.5 years. Also have a lot of preschoolers in there. Homeowners are older, have completed their family formation. Most of their kids are probably school age, and they move an average every 14 to 15 years. Much more stable population. And you can see, you got Eden at 90%, and you've got both Harris and Stevens at 61. Different dynamics because the apartments are in Stevens and Harris. So Eden's going to have a much different flow to their, more of a wavy flow because it's a majority home ownership rate, where it's going to be smaller waves and you're going through the areas with apartments in it. 27% of your households are single person. Suburban areas are always shocked to see that, but not surprisingly, the large numbers are in Harris and Stevens, where you see the apartments and the home ownership ones is like 19. Well, again, the good news, you already have almost 13% by now that are single over the age of 65. We pull out the group quarters in the over 55 communities and that to get a true measurement of what the potential is of these households going on the market. Now, this is my favorite data for the 2020 census, individual year of age, okay? Now in 2020, 5-year-olds That's your kindergarten. First grade, second, third, fourth, fifth. But now in the fall of 2023, these 2-year-olds are now 5-year-olds. That's your kindergarten. First grade, second, third, fourth, fifth. But we do this for 2 reasons. One, we can look for year-to-year variations. Stevens is a great one. 149 the cohort, next year is 124, back up to 147, down to 118. What we're trying to do is identify what we call noise in the data. And so, oh, we're up this year in enrollment, must be growth. Well, no, you should be up 25 students this year. You have a bigger cohort coming in. Conversely, you drop, oh, people are moving away. No, it's just a small cohort coming in. We want to identify that and take that out of the calculation. This way, you don't want to project off of 1 year. The other thing it tells us is what's the relative cohort size over time. So in 2020, you had 376 in your kindergarten bracket. Now it's 347, you got 2 more small ones coming in. That tells me how much in-migration you're going to need to fill in that preschool deficit. And we do it for all the areas, but here's an example for the district level. Something called the market share, okay? The reds are all first grade. So 295 is 84% of this number here. No school district gets all the kids that live in the district. You got transfers, you got vouchers, charters, private homeschool, virtual and light. 80 is about average for a suburban area. But if you go up, they're now second graders, third and fourth. Still calculate off of that number. If the percentages go up, it's in migration or in transfer. If they go down, it's out migration, down transfer. And we help build our year-to-year age-specific migration models on that. As you can see, you're going up pretty good rate on your kindergarten. You're 80% up to 88. The problem is the cohort size is smaller. So this dropping is not due to a slowdown in your in-migration or slowdown in people moving in here. You've got a bigger deficit to fill in. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of weakness in some of your kindergarten enrollment. But across the board, you look at all the age groups, you're a consistent sign of in-migration, households bringing kids in them. Problem is the cohorts coming in behind them, bigger and bigger deficit to fill in. So, because you don't have enough births. You haven't had enough births to maintain your enrollment out here for 30 years, probably more than that. Your fertility rate, we estimate about 1.79. You need 2.1 to break even. So that situation's not gonna change at all. All of this information goes into the population forecast to calculate. And there's 2 ways to read this. You can look at an age group over time. 5 to 9 is your elementary. 1838, 1800, 1880, 1810. Or follow an age group through time. 0 to 4 here is 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19. Your median age is going up. Because of the aging population, you still have a lot of young people going off to college, household size dropping because your youngsters are going off and moving away. These are the components of change for the 5-year period. The births stay relatively flat. The number of women prime childbearing age, fertility rate stays the same. Deaths go up, not because of any disease or COVID, but because you get more people in prime dying age, which is over 65. Well, it used to be, now that I'm 68, it's over 80. So it's still a tough crowd. Natural increase goes negative. This is the demographic factor of the next 15 years. Forget about foreign immigration, forget about moving around, tourists and all that. Even before COVID, we had 4 states and 800 counties in the U.S. with more deaths than births. We now have 15 in Indiana, and slowly moving this direction. Natural increase has been the backbone of population growth in this country for 250 years. Migration was just the icing on the top of the cake. But we're losing that because we got a baby boom. The front end of the baby boom is 78 this year. The peak is 67. Go forward 10 years, it's 77 and the front end of it's 88. you're just gonna see deaths go up, okay? So you're going to see a point here where you go to natural decrease. Net migration, someone will say, well, 430, we had more than 430 people move in a 5-year period. Well, you're right, you do. Your big in-migration flows are people 25 to 44 years old, bringing 0 to 9-year-olds with them. Your biggest out-migration flows are 18 to 22-year-olds and people over the age of 70. The net effect, positive versus minus negative, is about 430, which is still pretty good for most Indiana school districts. The result of this forecast drives the enrollment forecast, okay? Now, the analogy I use here is a bucket of water. If I've got a bucket of water and I'm pouring water in the top and there's a hole in the bottom, as long as I'm pouring in faster, it's going out the bottom, level will rise. But if the hole in the bottom gets bigger and it's going out faster than I'm pouring, even pouring at the same rate, level will drop. Enrollment works the same way. What's the size of the K in one cohort's coming in? What's the size of 12th grade cohort's going out? And you'll notice here the last couple of years, it boomed. It is 372 senior class going out. One reason why you dropped off, and you've got some relatively large cohorts coming out the next 4 years. That's why you see this big drop. The elementary, the K, the 1 enrollment stays flat, actually goes up a little bit, given the home sales and the building going on. But why do you see a drop at the district level? You just got big cohorts going out. Once that stops, and it's about 2028, then you start seeing a moderation and then start seeing some slight increases. You only got 305, 318, 318 going out. That's less to make up, okay? So you're gonna start seeing a slight increase in your enrollment. So you hit kind of the low point at 4,000, roughly 4,000 students in 2028, then you start creeping back up again. But let me reiterate on here, the most important part, you know, the new home construction, it'll affect the attendance area, you know, because that's just being centralized. But you're looking at the big picture, it's the pace and the magnitude of existing home sales is going to dictate the change. My fear is you've got a whole bunch of elderly out there, got their houses paid off, sitting on a ton of equity. They're looking around going, you know, not going to get any better than this. Let's get out while the getting's good. Let's cash in and start dumping their homes in the market, okay? You'll see new home construction drop immediately. But they're going to do that because I hate to break it to my fellow baby boomers, but you know, we're going to die. It's going to happen. And you probably want to sell that house before you do that. A lot easier to do. So when we do our evaluations, Harold, I'll call you up in September or October now. And they, you know, get your fresh ADM numbers, do the first evaluation on these. We do that for all school districts. See how we're doing. The first number I'm going to track is, okay, how did your home sales do from April to August this year? And if it's above what I had in the assumptions, well, I'm probably going to be too low. But if it's less than that, I'm probably too high. But we're typically within like less than 1% error at the district level. "25 minutes isn't bad for me." I tend to get a little long-winded. Guys behind me laughing, you heard me talk before, so you're getting off easy. Questions? Clear as mud?
Maybe not clear as mud, but we get the logistics.
If you don't laugh at my jokes, you can't ask questions. There's a rule. Yeah, I know it's a lot of data, the process, and it's complex, but let me close on one thing then. It's when people have questions about, did you include this and that, I've never heard anybody, board, public, administration, ever say or bring up a point that's not valid, okay? But there's two things on that. It may be a point that's only covering 2 or 3% of the population, and it's only 1 or 2 points we're bringing up. There's like 15, 20, 30 you need to be looking at, some positive, some negative. There's a lot of different factors going on in here. It's not as simple as it looks. It's more than just, you know, birth to K ratio, which is worthless anyway. The one, if you are looking at one factor, I'd look at home sales.
So in summary, your report seems to suggest that over the next 10 years, we're probably going to be pretty flat. We're going to lose a little bit and then gain a little bit in those last 3 years.
With luck, 10 years from now, you're gonna break even, which will put you in the top 20% of the school districts in Indiana, probably top 10% in the nation. Most school districts in the state and the country, particularly Midwest, are gonna lose enrollment in the next 10 years. Because the trends are against it. We've had dropping births for 15 years. It's gonna come home to get us. But one other thing I want to point out before I leave, in a good summarization, people fail to note this. Every child in this district, 4th grade and higher, 2023, is gone by the end of this forecast series. This cohort here, not even born yet, okay? Another reason why you don't want to look at past analysis, there's a lot of factors that come in there. A lot of housing, a lot of demographic factors, fertility, mortality, migration, interest rates, and the like in there. You have a great migration feeder. Everybody's trying to get out of IPS. You know, you're not going to have any problem with supply. It's just of migrants. It's just have some place for them to live.
Dr. McKibben, as we look at this here and going back to the point you highlighted earlier on, point I about the historical average
Yep.
transfer out, this is net of that transfer out.
This is net transfer of 480.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you drop that number to 400, basically add 80 students to this. If it kicks to 600, because God knows what the legislature's going to do next, which it may do that, I'd subtract 120. So I've given up trying to guess what the legislature's going to do with enrollment. So, I mean, to be honest, 5 years ago, I would never, you know, when they said, "Oh, we're doing vouchers for help these poor people out there," it was then, I think that time 60,000 was the limit. Never dreamed they'd kick it up to 226, but they did.
Dr. McKibben, we certainly appreciate the thorough methodology you've taken here, and I will be happy to update you with some numbers we have in the fall.
And if any additional questions do come up, please, Harold, get a hold of me and I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There you go.
Well, we do have a second part of our long-range planning. Dr. McKibben's really set the stage on the demographic side, which gives us a good idea what enrollment's going to look like. We did also ask the team from administrator assistants to look at the existing facilities that we have, looking at some of the needs that we know we have, some needs that we project to have. You've had an opportunity to see their report, but we do have the team here. Dr. Gabriel, give us some of the highlights.
Thank you. So let me start by saying my name is Paul Gabriel, and I have with me tonight John Beaker and Mark Keene. The three of us are all retired school administrators with a whole lot of experience in a number of different places, and we work for administrator assistants now. I don't have any jokes for you except to say that we didn't get paid as much as Dr. McKibben, so we're going to talk a lot less. So let's get started. You have the booklet in front of you, and this presentation has some page numbers associated with it if you want to follow along. So the first part is page 3 and 4. We didn't know what Dr. McKibben was going to say, and he didn't know what we were going to say. One of the things I did, this report was done, what's the date on it? In February, before his report was finished. And we really did a simple projection, which is to say, look at history, look at data about enrollment and births and nothing else, and project the future. And when you do something simple like that, you see the projections that you see here in orange. I went ahead and added his projection in that red line, just so you can see. And it really shows you what he described as 10 years from now, you're back to where you are right now. As we looked at this, we said, do we think that you as a school district have some opportunity to do some things to try and improve this situation? And we think you do. So he already said what I put in this first bullet, which is that this is a simple projection. It's not a forecast. He obviously is doing a forecast. His is a little bit more optimistic than our simple projection, but still puts you right back in 10 years where you are today. But we believe you have some opportunities to improve this picture by really kind of working on establishing your school district as a go-to district as you look at things in the future that may impact especially your transfer students. And I don't want to go into a lot of the math. It wasn't a very sophisticated process, but we believe that this is at least a possibility if you look at really trying to improve some things about the way people view your school district. I'm going to briefly review some of the background information. We looked at transfer students, not as much in depth, Dr. McKibben, but again, this year it's a net loss of 500. And you can see a chart that shows you what that looks like compared to the rest of the county. We were not specifically charted to look at your financial condition, but just wanted to point out some highlights, and I hope you realize this. We're all outsiders. We don't have any particular axe to grind here. But I hope you realize what an excellent condition you're in from a financial standpoint. I mean, I know I have worked with a lot of different districts, and most districts would die to have some of the statistics that you have. Things like a level tax rate, a good solid cash balance, bond issues coming off, a low tax rate, a low tax cap losses. Those are the sort of things that you're just so very fortunate that you're sitting in that situation, and just felt like we really couldn't do this report without mentioning that. We also looked at class sizes. This is on page 9, or on page, I'm sorry.
7.
I moved ahead too fast, and I've got to learn how to use this. I better stay right there. We looked at class sizes. That chart is on page 7. We show the number of sections in each building as well as the average class sizes. Again, in my experience, these are very good class sizes. I think that's something that, as we talk to your administrative staff, they realize that and they're proud of that. That's something that really always needs to be part of the Greenfield Central story about what type of a district you are. That's an advantage. Again, many districts would love to be in the situation that you're in with respect to class sizes. And we also did facility review. I apologize. The summary of the facility reviews are on page 8. We spent 3 days going through all your buildings. I think in summary, we think they're in excellent condition. It's interesting, again, we're outsiders coming in. One of the things that we notice is that the interior finishes that you have really provide a very consistent look and feel in your buildings. And most of your buildings are a combination of additions and changes that have taken place over the years. They're not all brand new, that are basically the same they were built. And I think you've done an excellent job in doing the remodeling that you've done, because when you walk into these buildings, you don't get that sense that, oh, I'm in a different section now, this must have been done at a different time. I think, and then what creates that, I think, is the finishes that you have that contribute to that. And the other thing is that, as we talked to people and looked at the buildings, we don't see a lot of evidence of deferred maintenance. And again, very fortunate position to be in. That doesn't mean you don't have projects that you need to do. Every district has projects that they need to do, and you're going to continue to do that. But I think it's also not unusual for districts to fall behind, especially in infrastructure things and in things that you can't see. When you walk into the building, you can't necessarily tell whether the water heater is about to fail, or needs to be replaced, or the roof, or whatever. And I think both in the discussions about the planning that you have in place, that seems to be very well done, as well as just looking at the buildings, I think that you're very fortunate that you don't have any evidence of any real deferred maintenance. So I'm going to turn it over to John. He's going to talk about. Now I get to advance the slide.
First of all, congratulations to Jason and Dan, two quality guys. I know, got two good ones there. My experience is from the high school level. I'm not a big PowerPoint guy, and so I'm just going to basically talk a little bit from what I heard from about 18 people we interviewed. All three of us interviewed, but I get to talk about it in the report. And anytime you bring 18 people together, you're going to get different perspective, experiences, philosophy on things, and that's good. I would challenge you to continue to do that, to talk with people. I think the only thing that maybe I wish it would have happened was we could have talked to some students, because I'm a big believer that students, especially juniors and seniors, have things to say about a corporation. Good things. Some of my best ideas came from 18-year-olds. I took all the credit for it, though. My takeaways were this from the faculty we talked with, and that is you're at a good starting point because we heard caring. They care about this school district. Central office cares about this school district. That's always a good starting point. And I think the other takeaway, I'm not going to go through all this because you got it in your report, but is the willingness to want to improve. I mean, that's another characteristic to me. Anytime somebody's wants to improve, not only as a person but as a district, that's very positive. As far as the facilities, the curb appeal is there. I'm gonna give my 2 cents. I think the high school entrance needs a little bit more pop. That's just me getting off script a little bit. I think you might get that with the auditorium entrance, maybe, from what I heard. But we all know the high school is a big part of attracting students. Not more important, just it is important. Challenges, we got a few things on here we put. Losing students to other districts, that's part of what we're all trying to figure out. And I know that Jason and the counseling staff at Greenfield talked to students, tried to get a hold of students as they were leaving, before they left, and sometimes that's good conversation to find out things like that. Sometimes they leave because they're mad. What can you do? Sometimes you talk to students and there's the legitimate reasons why they feel like they want to go somewhere else. So continue to talk with people if you can get that done. We put on here discipline perception. Every school fights that a little bit. My take on that would be, what kind of an entrance do you have into with new students? Are you welcoming them? Are you finding out what they want to be involved with? I think with high school people, we know that discipline problems aren't because they're not connected. So continue to connect students. And I think Greenfield does a good job with that as far as classes they offer, clubs. These all sound like little things, but they're big things when it comes to families and why they want to come here. Little things is what's going to get this done. Recommendations, we feel like develop a long-term plan. Do that involving a lot of stakeholders. I went through 2 strategic plans at my particular high school. The first one I did by myself was not very successful because nobody knew what I was doing in my office at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Second time I did it, I had a lot of stakeholders, and guess what? The implementation piece of that was so much more effective than me trying to tell everybody, here's our plan. much more effective. I still took credit for it though. Just kidding. As far as, you know, the in-house marketing piece, or excuse me, we asked to say employ a marketing firm. I think a lot of schools are going to that. I think they can work. I think they do work. But my point is that don't forget about your in-house marketing. Teachers, custodians, making sure that they're going home to their neighborhoods. I know we can't give them a script, but hopefully they're going home to their neighborhoods. And the people they're talking to, neighbors, and are saying good things about this school district. That doesn't always happen. Should be happening though. I think that's part of the role of the principal to make sure it's happening. You know, my dad used to say, and this is kind of related to that marketing, my dad used to always say, well done is better than well said. Unfortunately, in public education, we know we have to do both now. I think well done is happening. Maybe we just need to let people know what's going on here in a better way. Continue to expand on curricular offerings, things that are relevant. You know, that's an ongoing type of thing, curriculum offerings. And then Mark's going to talk more about the reorganization changes. So I just want to say thank you to everybody at Greenfield. I had an absolute joy being here in this district. My thrill was when I saw your basketball player talking to Mike Woodson in the coach's office. Hope Greenfield can get that done. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to talk about grade level organizations and a couple of other things. Just so you know who's talking to you, Paul didn't really specify this. Paul was a CFO at Center Grove, so he has extensive experience there. John was at McCutcheon High School. I was at Westfield from 1996 to 2016 as a superintendent. So you're kind of where I was in 1996. In fact, Dr. McKibben just done a demographic study for us. He's going, right?
Yeah.
He missed it badly. He didn't know our city council and our plan commission approved all the houses that they approved. In fact, Westfield still has 4,000 lots approved for construction, just waiting for people to come in the door. So part of that's because of the schools though. People came to Westfield because of the schools. When I got there, they were mad because the zip code, there were 2 zip codes in Westfield that are Carmel zip codes, but school attendance is Westfield. And they were moving into Carmel and had to go to Westfield schools, and they were mad about that. So we had to do some things, and I'll talk about that. But let me talk about grade configurations first. We go on page 11, I think it is.
Yep.
We have 4 recommendations for you. I'm not going to go through them because you've had these and you can look at them, and you're going to have to discuss internally what looks good, what looks bad. Obviously, a couple of them are over capacity in a couple of buildings, but it may be the right educational configuration for you. So that's something you'll need to wrestle with. We wanted to give these to you in our considerations because we thought these would work in your existing configurations. I liked one. Paul and John liked a different one. Both Nate, Harold had different opinions, and so we all have pluses and minuses. So it's to wrestle with, but I want to say when you go through these and you come to a conclusion of where you want to go, it's not a decision for next week or next month. It's a decision as part of a strategic plan. If I were to, I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. Where do you want Greenfield to be in 5 years? If you have a strategic plan, you can all answer that question because your strategic plan would tell you where you're going to be in 5 years. You need to have that. You need to have a direction. Otherwise, any stop along the railroad line will be the stop that you want to get off at. But part of the strategic plan also has to be a marketing plan, not public relations. It's marketing. Sell your story. You have a great story here. When we went through the buildings, the attitude of the employees, they all knew Harold, they all knew Nate. I've been at this long enough, I can walk into a building and tell you if it's got a good atmosphere or a poor atmosphere. Your buildings all had good atmospheres. people liked each other. But you have to control the message. Right now, we believe part of the drain of students is because you're not controlling the message. Some of the general public is controlling the message. And the same misperceptions are occurring over and over and over. You have to get a handle on that. But you can't market something unless you know where you're going. So you can better utilize buildings. We give you some ways to better utilize buildings. We think this is a diamond in the rough, possibly waiting to explode. I talked to some of the people in the building just casually, asked the same question, where do you think Greenfield's going to be in 5 years? They didn't really know. You need a direction. Everybody on the team, because there's a team spirit here, everybody on the team will get together and drive toward that. You do that for 5 years, and you renew that in 5 years, and board members, you need to be part of the strategic plan, at least 2 of you. And you also need to know that after the first year or the second year, revisions will need to be made. And you might take a couple of steps back in the first year before traction occurs. But if you've read the book, good to great. It's not about getting the right people on the bus. It's really about getting the flywheel spinning faster and faster and faster. It goes slow at first, like the old merry-go-rounds in the park where you get sent you around and you get flying off and everything. You gotta get it started and keep it going. Once you do that, everybody pulling together, our belief, the 3 of us, our belief is people are going to want to come here. Not leave, but come here. Because you've got a story to tell, and you're telling the story and attracting the people here. So those are our recommendations, and the 3 of us are willing to answer any questions you might have, because you've had to report for a while. There may be some questions, and we can answer them or make up answers depending on what has to happen.
Questions? I think we're good.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate your time.
Well, they've certainly given us a lot to think about, both from the demographic study, facility study. What put out for us there?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't have any questions tonight, but I think I'm gonna have about 150 by tomorrow morning, so yeah, I appreciate all the information.
I guess my question would be, in other school corporations that you found to be positioned similar to ours, I'm most interested in what they maybe did to control the message, because that's such a huge issue right now, and social media just amplifies that. So have you seen successful corporations that were successful in turning the tides and controlling their message, and how did they do that?
I would just say, I think it's what we've talked about is somewhat the difference between public relations and marketing. And public relations is where you get into the whole issue of internal work to try and manage what's happening. Marketing is really a different, more forward thinking and so forth. And I think there may be different approaches. I know that in my experience at Center Grove as an example, not the same position that you're in, but clearly a district with a lot of social media interaction, and we had people that monitored that all the time and reacted to it. And I know there are a lot of different approaches, and some people say just you can't win once you respond. It just escalates. But I think in the long run, their experience of really working at that and taking that as somebody's responsibility was helpful in the long run. I don't know that there's a good solution to that, and there certainly is a much different environment than what he was talking about in Westfield many years ago, because that has changed the environment a great deal, without a doubt.
I'm gonna amplify what Paul's saying. You don't wrestle with the pigs in the mud. Not gonna work. You have a message, you tell your message, you tell it consistently consistently with data points, and eventually that will win the day. Don't want to argue with you, but you can't win that argument. It's just not, it's not worth it. I never looked at social media. I slept well at night. And I use it. You have to be cognizant of it.
Yeah.
But in Westfield, the building principals were the ones, because they knew the facts and they were the ones that knew the parents that could deal with some of that. But as a district, you'll be responding all day to it. It's just not worth it.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
That's all we had on the long-range planning for today. We'll be following up on that.
All right. We'll go to our policy recommendations, first reading.
Just when you thought we were done with this, it's been a while. The General Assembly obviously just finished, and we do have some recommendations that came from our partners at Church Hill and Antrim. I have 4 of those for you today for our first reading. I've got another 4 that I'll bring you in July. The 4 that we've highlighted here, you have A300 on a responsible use of technology. As you see, this was something that we have had in place here. This recommendation includes a reference to artificial intelligence on the first page, and then there on page 8, talking about social media accounts and who really has access to those. So a couple things are highlighted on that. The A301 wireless communication devices, this is hot off the press from the General Assembly that each school corporation had to have a policy related to this. You'll see that it does address the possession of wireless communication devices, including but not limited to cell phones. It is written at the, I'd say, the 30,000 foot view. A lot of the specifics would still be done in an administrative guideline that we would hold students responsible for through our principals. We'd have B200 on membership. This has something on page 5 there related to school board members on your social media accounts. Obviously, you can have social media accounts. It just encourages you to make it clear that you're speaking as yourself or as a member of the board. And then the last one, policy C175 on student attendance, academic engagement, and truancy prevention. This has a lot of additions to the policy we had for 2022, incorporates some of that newest legislation that came out of the General Assembly this last spring. Some of that including having procedures in place for student participation if they are habitually truant. So those are the first, the 4 policies in this first reading. I'm happy to take any questions you have at this point. It would be my plan to bring those back to you for a second reading next month.
Any questions or comments? We'll move right along to technology, responsible use of policies.
And this is something we do on an annual basis, that we have to have basically the responsible use of technology that I just showed you in draft. We have to have that approved on an annual basis. That allows us to actually write some grants and qualify for some grants. Greg, what's the name of that?
Universal Services Fund, E-rate fund.
E-rate fund, there we go, which allows us to bring in thousands of dollars that offset some of our server costs, other infrastructure pieces. So what we would ask for this evening is that the board approve the SIPA policy, specifically the use of LineWise for our web filter, and then the second half of that's that responsible use policy, which you just saw in the first reading.
No questions or comments, can I get a motion to approve the renewal of the SIPA compliant for the web filter?
I move that we approve the renewal of the SIPA compliant web filter.
In a second,
Second?
all in favor say aye. Aye, all opposed same. On to out-of-state field trips.
Got 3 of those in front of you. We have the girls soccer coach Brandon Stano asking to take the team to Ball State's summer camp in July. Cheerleading coach Christy Carey requesting to take the team to Orlando, Florida in February for the cheerleading nationals. And then the third one, Blue Fusion coach Kaylee Bowman requesting to take the team to a team camp in July. These teams understand what your expectations are for out-of-state and overnight field trips. no cost to the corporation. I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the field trips as presented?
I move that we approve the overnight and out-of-state field trips as presented.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. On to contract recommendations, resignations, leaves, and retirements.
Okay, you have a very large personnel report this month, so put your seatbelts on there. Leave of absence, Sarah Beasley, Linda Brenniger Rollins, Sadie Jones. Certified recommendations for Charlton Quebec, Corey Gilman, Christina Cray, Andrew Marthin, Elizabeth Mercer, Abby Phillips, Nick Reagan, Rebecca Rhodes, Renee Ritchie, Samantha Wilkins, and Jill Zapp. Certified retirement, Linda Brenniger Rollins. Certified resignations, Alicia Broadus, Patty Cole, Stephen Kudla, Kathy Lee, Gina Russell, Jennifer Tanksley. Classified resignation from Tim Smith, and ECA recommendation, Zach Archibald, Austin Bain for 2 different positions, Will Bolden, Danny Capps, Ricky Clark, Will Coons, Emily Deere, Austin Early, Jeremiah Fields, Taylor Fortner, Carson Gibson, James Gilly, Shelby Goebel, Abigail Hampton. And the last page, Allison Hall, Brian Heckley, Megan Henderson, Max Holtzclaw, Courtney Majors, Josh Mullins, Alyssa Northern, Bill Roberts, Kenny Thompson, and Grace Twyford. Our recommendation is that the board approve the personnel report as presented and provide us with the ability to hire as needed for the 24-25 school year. And of course, we're going to bring those recommendations to you at the next regularly scheduled board meeting.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
I move that we approve the personnel report as presented and give permission to hire as needed for the coming school year.
Can you get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same.
I do have a number of individuals here this evening that we would like to introduce to you, if that's okay.
Yep.
Ms. Lillard, I know you have.
Good evening. I'm excited to be here and to introduce 2 new hires joining the Maxwell team. Ladies, if you can stand up. I have Rebecca Rhodes here joining us. She's an IU graduate, going to be teaching 6th grade at Maxwell. And I have Abby Phillips, who's going to be teaching 5th grade at Maxwell as well. She's a Greenfield Central grad. And I'm happy to report, and I feel a little old or experienced in saying this, but Abby was actually a 4th grader in my class back in the day. First class of 4th graders at Maxwell Intermediate School 14 years ago. So we definitely welcome them here. Thank you.
Mr. Walbaum.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity in my second board meeting now. We got right to work in interviewing, posting our assistant principal opening. So I thank you for that opportunity, and thanks to Steve and Nathan for their help with that and our administrative team. So at the end of that process, we were thrilled to welcome Mr. Nick Reagan to us as an assistant principal, and Nick's family is here tonight as well.
Am I missing any others? Ross, go ahead.
Yeah, I have Christina Craig.
Great. It's okay.
I'm so sorry, I've done this to her twice now, she did not like it the first time. And I told myself I wasn't gonna do this, and I did. So, and Renee Ritchie, Christina will be teaching 4th grade resource, and Renee will be our new instructional coach. Thank you guys.
I believe that's all. Thank you.
Well, welcome. If we don't have anything else, future important dates, regular school board meeting Monday, July 8th, here. Topics for future agenda, health service annual report. We don't have any other discussion. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say. Thanks, everyone, for coming.